You ever sit there staring up at the night sky, wondering what it'd be like to leave everything behind? Your job, your bills, the noise of daily life, and start over on Mars? Sounds kind of peaceful, right? A new beginning on a red, silent world where everything feels clean, untouched, and full of hope. But what if I told you that the way you die on Mars is nothing like the heroic sacrifice you're picturing? No noble ending, no slow fade into the stars. Just you, alone, helpless, and facing something your body and mind were never built to survive. Stick with me because the answer you came looking for is coming. Not just how you die up there, but why it's far worse than you ever imagined. And I'm going to break it down in a way no sci-fi movie ever dared to. This isn't fiction. It's what would really happen to you. This story, it isn't about astronauts in shiny suits or billionaires chasing headlines. This is about what happens when a regular human like you gets trapped in the one place where Earth rules don't apply, where gravity messes with your blood, where the silence drives people insane, and where a single crack in your suit doesn't just mean trouble, it means your end. Now, before we go further, I want you to feel something. Not fear, not excitement, but curiosity. That quiet voice in your mind asking, would I survive this? That's the feeling I want you to hold on to. Because through every second of this story, we're not just talking about Mars. We're talking about you, your limits, your instincts, your fight to stay alive when everything is against you. By the end of this video, you'll get your answer. The very thing you clicked for, it's coming. But I want you to see it, to feel it unfold step by step. Because Mars doesn't kill fast, it waits. And when it does strike, it's not the way you think. And trust me, once you find out the truth, it'll stay with you the next time you look up at that red dot in the sky. So here's where it begins. A mission that was supposed to be history-making. A crew that trained for years. Systems tested, plans reviewed, every failure imagined, except the one that actually happened. The problem wasn't the ship. It wasn't the tech. It wasn't even Mars. The problem was inside someone. And that's where everything started to unravel. It started like every great mission, with confidence, calculations, and the illusion of control. Earth had been preparing for this for decades. Billions of dollars poured into research, prototypes, training centers, international collaborations. The crew was a collection of top-tier talent, scientists, engineers, medics, all conditioned for the worst that deep space could throw at them. The idea was to set up the first permanent Mars colony, simple, self-sustaining, protected by layers of reinforced habitats and AI-supported agriculture pods. This wasn't a quick flag planting. It was the future, the gateway to interplanetary living. They trained under NASA, SpaceX, and an international alliance of space agencies and private contractors. They were chosen not just for skill, but for their minds, for their ability to handle isolation, uncertainty, and the fact that once they left Earth's orbit, there was no turning back. There were no rescue missions, no second chances, and no margin for error. The psychological screenings were intense, brutal even, but they had to be, because Mars doesn't forgive, and no amount of optimism changes what happens to the human body in an environment built to reject it. When the spacecraft finally lifted off, it was more than a launch. It was history being written in real time. Social media exploded with hashtags like #Mission Mars, #First Human Colony, and #Space Survival. Millions of people around the world tuned in. The YouTube livestream broke viewership records. Everyone wanted to be part of it. Everyone wanted to witness the moment humanity became the multiplanetary species. But those who really knew the risks, the engineers who stayed up late calculating radiation exposure and pressure fluctuation margins, they didn't celebrate. They just watched, quietly, because they understood something the public didn't. The real danger wasn't the launch. It wasn't the journey. It was what came after. The months and years spent on a planet where death could come in 100 different forms, and most of them no one had experienced before. By the time the crew landed on the surface of Mars, the dust storms had already begun their seasonal rotation. The atmosphere was unforgiving, thin, toxic, and filled with static that wreaked havoc on communications. The first few days were smooth. Habitats were deployed. The solar grid functioned as expected. Temperature controls held. The crew sent cheerful updates, smiling in their suits, talking about how incredible it was to see Earth as just a distant blue dot. But underneath those smiles was tension, because something about the planet felt wrong. It wasn't the silence. They were trained for that. It wasn't the isolation, they had accepted that too. It was something else, something they couldn't name, like the planet was watching, like it had been waiting. Then came the first malfunction, a minor glitch in one of the oxygen recyclers. Not catastrophic, but strange. It wasn't a mechanical fault. It was something in the readings, something that didn't match any Earth-based simulation, a chemical trace that didn't belong. The engineers ran diagnostics. Everything came back normal. And yet, the glitch kept happening. It was like the machine was reacting to something they couldn't see, couldn't measure. That's when the mission scientist began to log her observations, privately. She noted changes in crew behavior, increased paranoia, difficulty sleeping, minor hallucinations. But no physical cause, no contamination in the food or water, no spikes in CO2 levels, just stress, they said, just the adjustment period. But the logs kept piling up. One crew member, usually calm and composed, began talking to someone who wasn't there. He said it was a voice coming through his comms, soft, whispering, in a language he couldn't identify but somehow understood. The others laughed it off. Space fatigue, cabin fever. Until the voice started speaking to someone else too. Outside the habitat, the landscape was desolate. Red dunes, jagged cliffs, and shadows that stretched longer than physics should allow. The rovers picked up electromagnetic anomalies, pulses, that came and went like heartbeats buried under stone. And every time the crew followed those signals, they found nothing. Just rock, just sand, just the overwhelming weight of a planet that didn't want them there. It was during one of those exploratory missions that a team member vanished. No distress call, no alarm. 1 second she was there, just ahead of the group, and the next gone. Her suit's tracker flatlined. The oxygen gauge read full, no breach. Her boots left prints in the dust, but they just stopped, as if she had been lifted straight into the air. The search lasted hours, days. They combed the area, reviewed footage, checked every angle. Nothing. It was like Mars had erased her. And in the weeks that followed, the rest of the crew started unraveling. One began writing obsessive journal entries about patterns in the sand, spirals, symbols, geometric grids that no one else could see. Another refused to take off his suit inside the habitat, convinced the air had been corrupted. The mission leader, a seasoned veteran who had commanded 3 orbital missions, started forgetting basic protocols. He would wake up screaming, drenched, sweat, mumbling about glass cities under the ground and eyes in the soil. The medical officer tried to run cognitive tests, but even she wasn't immune. She began drawing the same symbol over and over, a strange 3-pronged mark that didn't match anything in human history. When she finally tried to explain it to the crew, her speech slurred, like something was short-circuiting her brain, and still the planet remained quiet. No storms, no seismic activity, just the stillness and the feeling that something beneath them was listening. Back on Earth, Mission Control noticed changes too. Delay in responses, vague reports, gaps in transmission logs. They blamed it on solar interference. But one technician dug deeper and found something else. Fragments of audio that had been filtered out by the system. Not static, not signal noise. Voices, dozens of them, layered, overlapping, speaking in a rhythm too fast for any human tongue. When they played the cleaned-up file, even hardened analysts fell silent. It was like the planet was speaking back, and whatever it was saying, it wasn't welcoming. The story began to leak. Not through official channels, but through whistleblowers, hacked databases, Reddit threads. Titles like Real Mars Mission Horror, Crew Losing Minds on Mars, Disturbing Truth Behind Mars Landing began trending. YouTubers and podcasters jumped on it. Conspiracy theories exploded. Some said the mission had found alien ruins. Others claimed Mars was alive, conscious, sentient, defending itself. But none of them had the full picture. No one did, because even the crew didn't understand what was happening. They just knew that they weren't alone, and that whatever they had brought with them from Earth, logic, science, control, it wasn't enough. As days turned into months, the crew began to disappear. Not all at once. One vanished in the greenhouse, another during a routine systems check. No blood, no struggle. Just silence, like they'd been folded out of reality. The last transmissions became fragmented. Whispered warnings, desperate pleas, and one final message that chilled everyone to the bone. It came from the mission leader. His voice was calm, almost resigned. He said, "It's not the air. It's not the cold. Mars doesn't kill you. It shows you who you really are. And then it makes you choose." Then the feed cut out, and no one's heard from them since. But that's not where this ends, because a new mission is already being planned. Bigger, better funded, loaded with AI systems and autonomous drones. They say the first crew malfunctioned, that it was a psychological collapse, nothing more. But we know better, you know better. And if you're still here watching this, then part of you wants to know too. What really happened? What did they find? What is it about Mars that breaks people down, not from the outside but from within? Stay with me, because the next part of this story will take you deeper, into places no human has ever returned from. And the scariest part? They're going back, and this time, they're not coming alone. The new mission arrived quietly, under the veil of silence that followed the disaster no one officially acknowledged. Public announcements were careful, sanitized, controlled. A routine exploratory mission, they said, with enhanced safety protocols. But behind the scenes, everything had changed. The powerful space agencies, private corporations, and secretive government branches knew that Mars was no longer just a rock with promise. It was a cage, a test chamber, a riddle wrapped in red dust. And those who went back were told that this time they were prepared for anything. They had the best tech, AI monitors that could track every heartbeat, every breath, and new suits with built-in emergency hibernation systems. But the crew, this new team, knew better. They had read the leaked reports, the rumors, the fragmented transmissions. They knew what had happened to the last group, even if no one said it out loud. The silence after that first mission was loud enough. It screamed warnings no one wanted to hear. The leader of the new mission wasn't a seasoned astronaut like the last. She was a psychologist specializing in space behavior, someone who had spent years studying the toll of long-term isolation on the human mind. She volunteered because she believed that understanding the psychological effects was the key to survival. But as soon as they touched down, something deep inside her shifted. She started feeling the same creeping unease that had plagued the first crew. It wasn't just the barren landscape or the thin air. It was something darker, a presence that slipped between the static and the shadows. She began noticing subtle changes in her teammates too. The engineer who wouldn't stop tinkering with equipment long after repairs were done, the medic who checked vital signs with obsessive frequency, the botanist who whispered to the plants in the hydroponic bay as if they answered back. Every night, their communications with Earth grew more fragmented, messages coming through distorted or delayed beyond explanation. The AI systems started reporting anomalies in sensor data, shifts in gravity that shouldn't be possible, electromagnetic pulses from deep underground, patterns of light flickering beneath the surface. One of the drone pilots swore she saw figures moving beyond the dunes, silhouettes that vanished when approached. They tried to rationalize it as mirages or technical glitches, but everyone felt it. The planet wasn't just a place. They were trespassers on something alive, something ancient. And whatever it was waking up. One day, the mission psychologist found a hidden data file buried deep inside the ship's logs. It was labeled classified, restricted. She had no idea who put it there, but it contained footage from the last mission, videos no one was meant to see. The images showed the missing crew member moments before her disappearance, eyes wide with terror, as something unseen reached toward her through the thin glass of her helmet. The audio was filled with static, but carried faint whispers, voices, in a language that sounded almost like a chant. The footage ended abruptly with a burst of static, and the chilling sound of a suit's life support failing. It was the first real proof that something on Mars was targeting them, not just physically, but mentally. The revelation spread through the crew like wildfire. Fear mutated into paranoia. People started turning on each other, accusing one another of hiding information or sabotaging equipment. The medic confronted the psychologist, claiming she was overstepping her role, stirring panic. The engineer locked himself away in the control room, refusing to speak. The botanist, now speaking in riddles, hinted at a force beneath Mars that communicated through plants and dust storms, calling it the Red Mind. No one understood what she meant, but they all felt the shift. The line between reality and hallucination blurred until it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Meanwhile, back on Earth, conspiracy forums exploded with talk of the Mars curse. YouTube channels and live streamers delved into the leaked footage and strange transmission snippets, generating millions of views with titles like Mars Colony Secrets Exposed, Why NASA Won't Talk About Mars Disappearances, and The Real Reason Mars Missions Fail. Viewers were captivated by the raw, unfiltered reality of space exploration turned nightmare. But for the crew, the world watching only added pressure. Any mistake, any failure, would be broadcast live, magnifying the stakes. The real twist came when the psychologist, in a moment of desperate clarity, discovered that the red mind wasn't just a metaphor. Hidden beneath the planet's surface was a massive networked organism, something that defied every scientific law they knew. It was alive, intelligent, and capable of manipulating the environment and human perception. It communicated not through words, but through feelings, images, and raw emotion. It could infiltrate dreams and consciousness, preying on the crew's deepest fears and regrets. Worse yet, it seemed to feed on the psychological stress caused by isolation and the alien environment. It wasn't just a physical threat. It was a mental predator, turning the crew's own minds against them. As the crew's mental health deteriorated, strange things began happening to their equipment. Cameras recorded shadows moving against the light, suits showed unexplained tears and burns, and life support systems fluctuated without cause. One crew member attempted to leave the habitat during a dust storm, convinced the planet was offering a way out, a chance to join whatever lived beneath. Rescue teams on Earth tried to send help, but signals became corrupted, robotic drones went missing, and the mission command struggled to maintain control. Then came the most shocking moment. The botanist disappeared in the hydroponic bay. No trace, no warning. But in her place, the plants grew wildly, vines creeping through cracks and wrapping around equipment like fingers. The crew found strange symbols etched into the glass, symbols matching those in the psychologist's journals, the same three-pronged mark the previous mission had seen. The habitat was no longer a safe zone. It was becoming a trap, a cage built by the red mind to hold its prey. The psychologist realized the only way to survive was to understand the red mind's language, to communicate rather than fight. But to do that, she would have to risk her own sanity, dive into a mental space no human had ever entered, and confront the darkness at the heart of Mars itself. The crew faced a choice: succumb to the planet's silent terror or risk losing, themselves trying to unravel its mystery. And with every passing day, the red mind grew stronger, feeding on their fears and fracturing their reality. The question hanging over them all was this: would they escape Mars with their minds intact? Or would they become part of the red dust, swallowed by a planet that had waited eons for visitors and wasn't about to let them leave? The next transmission from the surface was short, cryptic, and disturbing. It ended with the psychologist's voice whispering, "It's not just Mars we need to fear, it's what Mars makes us." And then the signal was lost. The days that followed the last transmission were the darkest yet. The habitat felt like it was closing in, every breath a battle, every shadow a threat. The remaining crew members clung to fragments of reality, their minds fraying under the relentless assault of the red mind's influence. Sleep became a twisted, haunted space where dreams and memories collided with nightmares so vivid they left physical marks, scratches on skin, bruises that appeared overnight, whispers echoing long after waking. The psychological effects of Mars's desolation were no longer theoretical. They were a living, breathing nightmare shaping their every moment. The leader, the psychologist, pushed harder than ever to keep them together, to hold on to the fragile thread of sanity that still connected them. She realized that survival wasn't just about oxygen tanks or radiation shields, it was about conquering the terror inside their own heads. In the hydroponic bay, vines had taken over, their creeping growth like an invasive species, except they weren't just plants. They pulsed faintly, as if breathing, responding to their emotions. The botanist's disappearance had been more than a loss. It was a transformation. The red mind, it seemed, was expanding, using the crew's fears and desperation to seed itself. Within the habitat, attempts to cut the vines only led to faster regrowth, like a living virus adapting to every countermeasure. The engineers' tools became useless, and even the AI monitoring systems began reporting failures, as if the entire habitat was succumbing to an infection. Then came the breakthrough. The psychologist found an old transmission file buried deep in the ship's corrupted databanks, and it was a recording from the planet's surface, made by an unknown source decades before the first crew landed. The video showed strange symbols etched into Martian rocks, ancient and weathered, alongside images of fossils that looked disturbingly like early human ancestors. The implication was staggering. Mars might have once been home to a civilization connected to Earth's own origins. More than that, the transmission contained a chilling warning in an unfamiliar language, which the psychologist's AI assistant translated into fragments. The red mind is the guardian. It protects the secrets beneath. Intruders will become part of the dust. This revelation turned everything upside down. Mars wasn't just a barren planet. It was a tomb, a vault, protecting something so powerful that it could manipulate minds and reality itself. The crew realized their mission was never about exploration or colonization. They were pawns in a much larger game, a cosmic experiment with stakes beyond human comprehension. The red mind was not malevolent out of cruelty. It was survival, defending itself from what it saw as a threat, a species that had come too close to the truth. Faced with this, the crew had two choices: flee and risk being lost forever in the planet's shifting sands, or attempt communication with the red mind, hoping to find a way to coexist or negotiate. The psychologist decided on the latter, despite the danger to her own psyche. Using ancient symbols decoded from the transmission and patterns observed in the vine growth, she created a rudimentary language of emotions and signals designed to reach the red mind on its own terms. The attempt was terrifying. When she engaged, the habitat trembled with unseen energy. Lights flickered erratically, and the red dust storms outside roared like a living beast. She felt herself pulled into a trance where time dissolved, memories of Earth bleeding into visions, of Mars's past, civilizations rising and falling, the red mind growing from the planet's core, shaped by the pain and isolation of eons. It revealed itself not just as a guardian, but as a collective consciousness made of countless lost souls, ancient explorers who had fallen victim to the same fate, trapped in a cycle of survival and despair. In that moment, the psychologist understood the true horror and beauty of Mars. It was a mirror, reflecting not only the planet's secrets, but the deepest parts of human nature: fear, hope, resilience, and the unyielding drive to survive. She returned from the trance with a message of peace, a fragile bridge between humanity and the red mind. The vines retracted, the habitat system stabilized, and for a brief moment, the crew felt a calm unlike anything they had known. But as they prepared to send this unprecedented contact to Earth, the final twist unfolded. A hidden signal disrupted their communication, a warning from a shadowy group back home. The mission was not approved for contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. Earth's powers wanted Mars and its secrets buried, sealed away from public knowledge. The transmission was cut, the habitat's power surged, and the crew realized their true enemy might not be the Red Mind, but the very people who sent them there. The psychological thriller of survival on Mars became a story of human greed and fear, where the real horror was the darkness lurking in humanity's own heart. As the final scene faded, the psychologist spoke directly to the camera in her last transmission, a plea for truth and courage in the face of the unknown. Mars doesn't want to kill us. It wants us to understand. If we shut our minds and hearts, we become the real monsters. The Red Mind showed me that surviving isn't just about breathing. It's about connection. The real battle is inside us. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of inner strength and resilience. Until next time, stay strong, stay brave, and never forget your worth.